Good Morning Liberty.
Well, what is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Good Morning Liberty. My name is Nate Thurston. Across from me is Mr. Charles Meka Thompson, coming at you on July 3rd, not July 4th.
We're almost there.
July 3rd, my brother's birthday. Happy birthday to my brother. And we're not going to do a 4th of July episode because it's a holiday. And so we're going to take that day off, you know.
Nate's going to be out shooting guns and stuff.
Maybe. It's so darn expensive to shoot guns these days. You know, you got to think with every pull, you got to think, is it worth it to do this, you know?
Well, you got to have to start reloading yourself.
Yeah, that's true. Might save a little bit of money. I'm not going to do it personally, but maybe my brother will. I don't know. It's Dumb Bleep of the week, by the way, everybody. That's the day of the week where we get all the dumb things. We put them together into a list, normally 10 or so items. Some of them come from the Fed Haters Club, who's hanging out with us via joingml.com. They're hanging out in the private Discord. We put all these things together. They get to vote on it, and then it moves forward to Dumb Bleep of the month, which happens eventually after the month is over, and then Dumb Bleep of the year at the end of the year. This one's kind of a jumbled up mess. It's not Friday. Normally I have another day to prepare and to gather dumb things.
Things are moving up. And
no doubt with the big, beautiful bill vote probably happening today sometime soon, we'll have many more dumb things that could have been added in tomorrow that we don't have. As of the recording of this episode, the vote hasn't happened. The bill has not passed. We don't know for sure what's going to happen.
it probably will.
It will. I would, you know, if you were a betting man, then you'd probably bet on it passing.
That Trump signs it by July 4th, which is what he wants.
Most people, even if they have big problems with it, they're still going to vote for it. And I did want to clarify before we, I get it. It's not that I don't understand why this bill is the way that it is or why people end up voting for it and not voting for it. Like, we're big fans of Thomas Massey and we support him not voting on things. I get all the sides of the argument. Before we just get into talking about that bill, like if I were to ask you, if they were to make way bigger cuts in this bill, do you think there's a good chance it would pass?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Okay. So while we hate that and we disagree with that and they should make the cuts, and if they won't vote for those cuts, they should get voted out of office. I get it. There's almost no point in putting forward a bill that you know has no chance of passing. And that's a problem. And that's the problem that should be approached. Why does a bill that makes the appropriate cuts have no chance of passing? You know?
I got an idea. Let's separate the bills.
Yeah, and that's a good idea. Well, we could do that.
We'll vote on the cuts. We'll vote on border security. We'll vote on deportation.
Of course, then the argument is that this one is reconciliation. They can't break it up like that. They need to do this 50-vote threshold bill. And like, I get all the arguments. When we talk about this, the point I'm making is why are we not moving more in the direction of making bigger cuts and then attacking the people who won't vote for those bigger cuts instead of attacking the people who want bigger cuts? That part just, I don't know. It doesn't track with me. Well, it kind of does track with me because it's the U.S. government. And, it's way easier to just keep spending money and not risk your job, you know, as a congressperson or as a senator, and you don't want people to say bad things about you in elections. But anyhow, so before we make fun of all these things, I just want to make sure that we mention that. The first couple things are not going to have anything to do with the big, beautiful bill or Thomas Massey or Elon Musk or Trump really on the big, beautiful bill or Zoran Momdani or anything like that. Okay. So if you came here to hear our take on the Mamdani Massey Elon Musk conversation from the week, you're going to have to wait like 15 minutes. Okay. I'm just saying, you got to wait. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. The first thing here has to do with Alligator Alcatraz, which I admit is a catchy name, man.
That's great.
I'm not against Alligator Alcatraz, by the way. I'm fine with it. I've got two things in here about it, and it's interesting to show how you can go pretty extreme on both sides. Like the right can go pretty extreme with these things, and the left can go pretty extreme with these things as well. The first one, I'm going to go with the right. Now, they've made merch for a for a prison or whatever, or temporary holding camp.
It's actually how they're funding it.
Yeah. Hey, that's
through
fine.
merch sales.
Hey, if you want, if there's a way you can get the people to voluntarily
You
pay
guys
for it
like
by
Benny Johnson
doing
with
merch sales,
millions of followers.
Gator Gitmo's a nice name too. Alligator, Alcatraz, Gator Gitmo. I like both of those names. I'll play the video from Benny Johnson. It's not like crazy dumb, but there is a nice contrast here between this and then the left perspective on it.
I just want everyone to know that there's official Alligator Alcatraz merch. There it is, provided to us by the state of Florida. Incredible. And yeah, would you rock this drip? Look at that.
Would you rock that drip?
Would you rock the strip? I think he mixed a couple different generations.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened right there.
I don't either.
There's something about, like, I'm in favor of fixing immigration, and I'm fine with deportations and stuff like that.
I feel like my hat's way better.
Yeah, you got a nice hat. It's just got an American flag on it, man.
Yep.
That's a nice American hat. I'm fine with deporting people, especially violent criminals, stuff like that. I don't celebrate like the normies getting
like violent
deported.
criminals, like Americans.
No, violent criminal illegal immigrants.
Okay,
getting deported. I'm fine with that, and other people getting deported as well. I just don't like them being a priority. There's something a lot of people on the right do where they kind of just take glory, and I've seen video clips of like a mom crying, getting arrested by ICE and getting deported, or like a guy from a construction site or whatever. And I get we have laws and we're going to enforce the laws and stuff like that. I don't feel good when I see that kind of stuff. Like, I've been on a lot of job sites and I worked around a lot of people who might be worried about ICE coming to the job site someday. I'll just say it that way. And they're, the people I've worked around for so many years are super hard workers.
So there's fine people on both sides.
There are fine people on both
what
sides.
You're trying to say.
Like, you could say, yeah, we got to do this. This is the law. You got to do it the right way. You got to do it the legal way, but not take like so much joy and pleasure in someone who's been here for 20 years and who's working and has a family and paying payroll taxes when they're working and stuff like that. If they're not getting paid under the table, which is fine, honestly, not taking like so much pleasure and joy, excitement out of it. It's just a little bit too
that
far.
Just seems
in my
to
opinion.
be the human.
I know. Like, I don't feel happy when I see that person getting
arrested. That's why people would the crowd would line up to watch the guillotine.
Yeah. But then there's something else here that was kind of related. This is from Project Liberal. That's Josh Eckel, ain't it? Yeah, pretty sure Josh Eckel. So this is going around. We're talking about immigration, and luckily they got dragged on this pretty hard in the comments. Okay. Project 1938 was people getting loaded on the train cars.
Jews.
Yeah. Project 2025 is people getting loaded onto a plane, I guess, and shipped off.
So this is the Mexican Holocaust?
Yes. This is the Mexican Holocaust. Exactly. The illegal immigrant Holocaust happening. The biggest problem with this, and this is really the main focus of Dumb Bleep number 1, is man, do you super not take the Holocaust seriously if you want to compare the things. Like, you might be against deportations. You might be in favor of whatever kind of immigration and everyone coming here possible. You might be open borders or whatever. And so you might be unhappy that people are getting deported and shipped out of the country and all that. But to turn that around and compare it to the Holocaust and Jews getting loaded on train cars to ultimately be gassed or killed or tortured or whatever, it's very much not the same thing. It takes away from the Holocaust itself, and we should stop making these just kind of references to this is Hitler, this is the Holocaust, because it devalues that.
Yeah,
all the time.
As Costco put it here in the Fed Haters Club, when everything is the Nazis and the Holocaust, nothing is the Nazis and the Holocaust.
Yeah, it's true. And eventually you're going to cry wolf for so long that when something actually does happen, I'm just going to ignore it because you've been calling everything Nazis and the Holocaust this entire time. And if you go through the comments on this, it's basically what we're saying right now. Like, I didn't see, I scrolled through,
Well,
a few pages of comments, and there was like no one in favor of the message behind the meme.
These trains, like they went all the way to Israel, right?
Yeah, straight there.
They went all the way to Israel, and that's where the concentration camps were set up. We're in Israel.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get to Big Beautiful Bill, Zoran, Momdani, all that kind of stuff, I'll have another annoying conversation with you real quick. Senator Alyssa Slotkin post this out, and it's not factually accurate. It drives me nuts, and it also drives a lot of things that the government does and what people push for the government to do. And so it's sort of a dangerous, continuous myth for everyone to think is reality. But she says, as a former CIA officer and Pentagon official, so you can't trust her. Like, first off, she's lying. Okay.
Even though she's trying to establish credibility in the first line.
That's not it. That's not the way you establish credibility.
So you're lying.
Yeah. She says, I believe the single greatest security threat to the U.S. is the shrinking middle class. This is existential. As a national security professional, what do you do when there is an existential threat? You get to work on a war plan. Is the CIA supposed to help us with economics now? I don't understand what her point is. What does this have to do with being a national security professional?
I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
I can steel man the argument.
Well, if you destabilize your country economically, it's very dangerous. I would say, first off, if other than the shrinking middle class, which you could just look at chart after graph after chart to show why the middle class is shrinking, you would say that the fact that our Social Security and Medicare, like our entitlement programs, are literally going to run out of money and have to be cut drastically in like 8 years from now, and we're going to have to fundamentally change the way that we do our entire entitlement social welfare system that we have in the United States, and that we have trillions of dollars of debt, and we're destroying our currency, and we're going to have to drastically raise taxes or print a bunch of money and spike inflation and all that, that would be like a bigger problem than the middle class problem, which is shrinking because people are getting richer. And there's plenty of evidence to show that is the case. And so I wouldn't say that is the single greatest threat, especially when you can look at all of these facts and figures and see things like, I've got a chart up on the screen if you wanted to watch this on YouTube, that'd be fine. That this is in constant 2022 dollars, 54.6% of households in the United States in 1967 were middle income households. And that has shrunk, Charlie. That has shrunk to 39.1% in 2022. So the middle class households did in fact shrink. They are true. What they're saying is true. But what also happened is 13.1% of households in 1967 were in the high income category, and now it's 37.5%. 32.3% of households in 1967 were in low income category, and that has shrunk to 23.3%. So both middle income and low income shrank, and high income grew by like 3 times during that time, meaning more and more people are moving up into the higher income threshold. This happened, by the way, this is households. This happened while the amount of people living by themselves, single person households, has doubled over this amount of time. Meaning, when you look at a household income, it's very different when you have 2 people household income or 1 person household income. And even while the amount of people
I don't think
that
this
just
chart's
have,
right. I mean, $25 is way different than $22.
Super different.
It is.
Yeah. It's a little different. Yeah. So you're saying all of this stuff is negated because we had that inflation?
No. I'm not saying all of it. I'm just saying if you go to the grocery store, I'd rather go to the grocery store in 2022 than I would right now.
Yeah. I would too. We're not talking about cost of living, by the way. We're talking about income.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying that life hasn't.
What does income matter?
I'm not saying that life hasn't gotten harder. When we say the shrinking middle class, we are literally talking about income brackets. When we're talking about that, it's not that things haven't gotten harder over the last few years to pay for things. I wouldn't
consider $100,000 high income anymore.
Oh, okay. We're talking about the income brackets that they use.
Look, I'm just
yeah.
adding nuance to the conversation. I'm not saying you're wrong. Don't come after me, Nathaniel. Yeah. All I'm doing is critiquing.
I get it. We should steal man more often.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I think I understand what she's saying. I think she's wrong, but I do understand what she's saying. Obviously, if you get to a point where you have enough people that can barely scrape by, and they feel like a rat, trapped, they're going to claw their way out.
Yeah,
and that could be dangerous.
She put out a 27-minute speech about this, so we're not going to listen to her speech, by the way. But her prescription is that the government needs to get more heavily involved in the economy to fix this problem, and it's the government's failure because they're not doing enough to lift up the middle class people.
Yeah, that's wrong.
And so that is the danger of this.
It's
myth,
actually
is that the prescription for this myth is that the government needs to get more heavily involved in economics.
No, it's the government's involvement that has created this problem. If we had a truly free economic and free market, then we would probably see the same.
Oops.
We would see better numbers of people going from poor to middle class to rich,
and you'd have less inflation.
Yeah, less
making
inflation,
things harder for people,
and the economy would be a lot smoother.
Okay, that's number 2. Now we'll get into Zoran Momdani. I have a hard time saying that last name. I like your name. Your name for him better.
Zelda Muhammad.
Zelda Muhammad.
Yeah.
It's pretty good stuff. He is. We've been gifted with a few viral videos of his this week, so we might as well listen to a few of them. Now, this quote right here is not an exact quote. He doesn't say that they're going to convert properties in the communes. It's just like community-owned property. He doesn't say communes, which is why there's a proposed community note on it, just so you know. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Go further toward the Vienna model. We'll have to go beyond the market. We can establish community land trusts to gradually buy up housing on the private market and convert it to community ownership. We can give tenants a right of first refusal to buy out their landlords when buildings go up for sale. And we can fully commit to a new era of social housing, ending subsidies for luxury housing development and using our wealth to build beautiful, high-quality social housing projects that offer good homes and strong communities to everyone. We won't decommodify housing overnight, but we know what we have to do, and we have history to...
He's got history to prove it. He knows what they got to do. And that's... Have you ever been to like a public housing place that was just awesome? You're like, oh my God, they really got their act together here, man. This is great.
I mean, the first year is probably fine.
It is. Yeah,
it's beautiful when they open it.
I live next to a lot of those kinds of places, and right now they look great. Okay, now they're not they're not owned by the tenants or anything, which would be probably even worse or whatever. But typically everyone here knows what public housing looks like. And that's what we're fighting more and more for in New York City. We got to decommodify housing, which is, let me tell you what, really, it turns out buildings don't really cost much money, and you don't need to pay a lot of money to update them and make them continue to work. And so when you decommodify them, it really doesn't matter if you kill the incentive to make investments in the building because they'll just be awesome. We've got history.
Yeah.
On our side on this. It turns into just an awesome, heaven-like experience, really, for all the people that live there from what I've seen so far.
You never have to make any investment or updates or anything.
No.
You've lived in a house.
Well, and even if they...
Well, when did you buy your house, Nate?
2016.
Never done any updates, right?
Not a single time.
Perfect.
No, not a single time. Ever have I. Now,
I think you've pretty much gutted the whole thing by now.
The whole thing.
And
I replaced everything.
Everything. Flooring, cabinets.
Yeah.
You added cabinets.
Whole place.
The
whole place is different.
Thing.
What he would say is, well, of course, we're still going to make investments in making these places better, but people are going to do that because it's the right thing to do to make it better for the community that lives there. You don't need to be driven by profit to make these investments so you can make more money off of it. They're going to do it out of the goodness of their hearts, out of their moral obligation to make these buildings more livable, better environments for families. It's about the family, Charlie.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
This is what's so interesting about human beings. Like, when you are personally invested in something, you actually will take care of it. When you're not,
mm-hmm.
you know, there's a saying like drive it like it's rented for a reason. It's not your car.
Yeah.
You know, so sure, I could burn out and, you know, do some donuts and maybe take it budding.
Yeah, it turns out when you own something, you'll take better care of it. And I live in a neighborhood where a bunch of the houses are being rented now. It was not that way in 2016 when we bought the house, but now a bunch of the things are rented. And when you're renting something, you don't take as good a care of it. And there are owners somewhere. I don't know where they are. You know, it's one of these situations where that evil big company's coming in and buying up the houses. Which in one way, like as a person who lives there, I'm like, man, this sucks. Freaking hate renters. But it's actually kind of funny now because my wife and I are talking about selling the house. And we're like, oh, I don't know in this market. And I'm like, whatever. A big company is going to come buy it from us. No problem. Like, in fact, I'm not even going to put it on the market. I'm just going to call the big company specifically.
Yeah.
Like there's a company that owns the house next to me that they're renting. I'm just going to call the company.
They own like
straight up
50 houses in your neighborhood.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, hey, you guys own the house right next to me. You might as well own the one that I'm in also. You can
for this
get
price.
A 2-for-1 when you drive out there to work on stuff. And here's the price. And they're probably going to do it. And so, you know. You got to take the bad with the good sometimes. Okay, how about billionaires? Let's do that.
You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
So I don't think that we should have billionaires.
It's too much money.
Yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot of money when you think about it. It's too many monies. You know, how can one person manage all that many monies? It's just not possible.
So many people have so few.
Yeah. I did have a response to this from Ryan Grimm, who does, I think, Drop Site News, and he also does a thing called Counterpoints. I listen to him when he does stuff with Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar. He says, Zoran is obviously correct. No sane society would have billionaires. Rich, sure, but so rich that their individual unchecked decisions can change the course of history at a whim. No, that's insane and un-American. I still, I feel like it's the government with their guns that I'm more worried about changing the course of history at a whim, but whatever. That's fine. No sane society would have billionaires. And we just created an arbitrary number, by the way, where once you cross over that 999 million mark into the billion mark, that's bad, just because you're a billionaire and that's a bad thing. I keep saying this over and over again, and if you've been listening for a long time, you got to be sick of it by now. But it's so important in the billionaire conversation to understand that most of that money doesn't exist. Okay? By doesn't exist, I just mean it is a representation of the value of their stocks and what people are willing to pay for those stocks and what
I'd be
price.
willing to bet there's not a single billionaire who's got $1 billion
They might have $1 billion
in cash.
Well, not in
or
cash,
even in a
lot
bank
of cash.
account.
Yeah, I would say that Musk maybe has $1 billion in the bank, maybe. So you said not a single. I would say that there are probably a couple who have like at least $1 billion, maybe. That's
like
a lot.
They look at their bank account and
the
there's
bank. You got to make sure your password's protected, hardcore on that one.
And there's 3 commas. You're saying they have. Is it 3
I'm
commas?
saying they got $1 billion.
Yeah,
over $1 billion in there, maybe.
So they say 3 commas.
I'm just being autistic about the matter. You said there's not a single, and I'm saying there might be like 2.
Yeah,
it's possible.
I'm just trying to. Would 3 commas even fit on your phone when you open the app?
They probably had to change the software for it to show it in there. Most of these billions of dollars are just values placed on the companies that they own. Okay, like I could make a company, and I could come up with this crazy idea. Just crazy idea, okay? And let's say it's like the most monumental idea you ever heard of. And I start the company. And then I go to these investors. okay? And I say, I want you to put a valuation on this, and I want you to buy, you can buy 5% ownership of my company. And they say, well, for 5% ownership of your company, we're going to give you $100 million because this idea is just amazing, okay? So they're going to invest $100 million. Now, how much am I worth now? They just bought 5% ownership of it, so it's 20 times what they just put in on that. Okay, now I'm a billionaire because they just invested $100 million at a 5% valuation, placing a value on my company at, what's that, $2 billion, something like that?
Mm-hmm.
So now I've got a company valued at $2 billion. I own the other portion of it. Now I'm worth over $1 billion. And all that happened was someone gave me $100 million. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I just became a billionaire. That's what happened.
Well, like, and even Jake says here, Warren Buffett claims he keeps $1.2 billion in cash assets. Warren Buffett himself does not. Berkshire.
It's Berkshire.
Berkshire,
Yeah.
the company.
Maybe Warren Buffett does. They've got a ton in cash all the time. I would assume
But
it's
I don't
more
think,
than 1.2
I don't
billion.
think he's holding it personally. I think the company.
No, he's
holds
got a guy holding it for him. He's not.
Anyway,
he's old.
It's semantics.
All right, let's do a little bit
The
more.
point is, we could say with certainty the vast majority of the dollars are tied up within companies that are valuable, or the market says they're valuable.
I'm gonna skip the other video of Mamdani going around. It was an older video. Most of you seen it. It's where he actually mentions like his end goal of seizing the means of production. And I thought it was pretty cool because it's a good point to make that the socialists, the Marxists, the communists, whatever, they are willing to take incremental steps in their direction. He's talking to his supporters and all the socialists and people like that. And he's like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do this. And of course, we're working towards our end goal of seizing the means of production. Of course, that's what we're working towards. He's like trying to keep the diehard principled socialists happy. You guys know who we're referencing now because I do think that maybe libertarians should think about that every now and then if we could actually move in that direction. Unfortunately, it feels like we're always moving in the opposite direction.
So why are you mad at Trump? I mean, this is obviously incremental libertarianism.
I'm not convinced we're moving in the right direction at all is the problem. I will take incremental steps in the right direction.
In order to make money, you got to spend money.
That's what they say.
Raise that debt ceiling.
I mean, that's true.
The economy's going to be.
I just don't trust the government to be the one to do it.
Nate, the economy's going to be on fire in a good way.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
We're
going to see so much growth. You're going to wish we raised the debt ceiling $10 trillion.
I know. I wish they would have spent more.
There's going to be
I'd have got them 10.
There's going to be 100,000 million billion trillion dollars coming into this economy.
More than that, even. That's a ridiculously low number.
Okay.
So now we'll get to the Elon Musk Trump feud. Not going to go through the whole thing, but the main
seems to have died down a bit. It happened for like a day.
Yeah, it's about a day. Musk had commented that he really wanted to escalate, but he's going to refrain from escalating. He really wanted to, but he's going to refrain, and then that's been kind of the end of it since then. Which is nice. I think that's fine. But we'll see if he's going to start that America party after this bill passes. He says the next day he's going to have a new political party, and so that's going to be a problem for some people. I wanted to bring this in as the main dumb, where Trump says, Charlie,
Elon Musk knew long before he so strongly endorsed me, this is Trump, for president, that I was strongly against the EV mandate. It is ridiculous and was always a major part of my campaign. Electric cars are fine, but not everyone should be forced to own one. Elon may get more subsidy than any human being in history by far, and without subsidies, Elon would probably have to close up shop and head back home to South Africa. That's probably not true. No more rocket launches, satellites, or electric car production, and our country would save a fortune. Perhaps we should have Doge take a good hard look at this. Big money to be saved.
The main dumb thing in here, which our points on SpaceX and the fact that it saves the government a ton of money and all that. So, you can see other episodes. The main dumb of this, in my opinion, other than the SpaceX part, is that he seems to just be lying or completely unaware that Musk does not care about the EV mandate or the subsidies. like the clean energy.
Well, the dumb
credits
about
and
it
stuff
is
like
that he's trying to distract from actually talking about the policies.
Yeah, yeah, and
he's like Elon Musk's whole point about the big beautiful bill is that it's not good for our country in the way of spending money and going further into debt, and he's concerned about bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Trump could get on there and say, Elon's wrong because I ran the numbers.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, we are going to be adding to the deficit over the next 2 years, but the growth coming behind this is going to so far exceed.
Yeah, he can make the actual points about the bill.
Yes.
Yeah.
But no, he decides to attack Elon and try to make it personal,
Mm-hmm.
and is saying, well, Elon's just saying these things because he's upset about the EV.
And that's what really gets into the dumb part for me. And it's the same thing with the Thomas Massey stuff. Like, I can handle people disagreeing on policy and strategy and stuff like that. When it turns into like straight up lying to your supporters, especially when you have a lot of supporters who are just going to believe anything you say, when it comes to just straight up lying about stuff, that's where it starts to get real dumb and super annoying. And, I just get really mad about it. Why don't we just talk about the policy, argue back and forth and say, yeah, we got a difference here. Why make up a thing about the EV mandate? He says it was always a major part of my campaign. He's correct about that. And Elon Musk was there for quite a lot of the campaign. He clearly didn't have a problem with it. Doesn't have a problem with it now. Hasn't said anything about having a problem with it. And so that's pretty annoying. And he commented on this, Musk did, saying, I'm literally saying cut it all now. Just do it.
I didn't see that.
It's like I'm over here screaming. I don't care. Cut every. Yes, do
That's
it.
not what
cut
this is about. Let's talk about the bankruptcy of America.
Okay. Since it's getting late here, I'll skip over that. Now we're still on Dumb Bleep number 4. Luckily, we only had 9. A flip side of this, Musk. I talked about this earlier in the week, where Musk seems to also have an issue with this bill doing exactly what this bill should do when it comes to the effects, the disproportionate effects for different income groups.
It's just cutting
of the
taxes.
Bill. Yeah.
Well, it's not even cutting taxes.
There are some cuts. There's
What's so weird is like we're not. All these numbers are just made up.
A lot of them are made up
because we're just keeping the tax rates the same.
Mm-hmm.
Literally the exact same.
There's a few things like increasing the SALT deductions, the state and local tax deductions.
They removed that, I thought.
No, they. From what I can tell, they moved it up to 40,000. The cap was at 10,000.
I
believe
thought they
moved it up to 40.
Down from 30 to 20.
I don't.
In the recent Senate.
This is a great example of how it's so difficult to find out what's actually in these things. I was pretty sure it went from 10 to 40, and that's where it's at.
No,
right
I know,
now.
but then I think the Senate moved it down
to
30 or 20. They cut more off of it.
We'll see. That could be why so many people in the House are upset about it. The point about this is Musk have responded to a post by Grok saying that, this is a tax bill that's going to cost the bottom 20% about $500 to $700 annually, while boosting the top 20% by $5,000 to $6,000. The bill is regressive, favoring high earners. And Musk is then trying to use that as a reason to speak out against the bill, because this is in that day where he's going hard against the bill. And the point that we made earlier in the week is anytime you cut taxes and you cut welfare payments, the chart is going to look like this. Okay, people who get a lot of welfare are going to get less welfare. So there's going to be less welfare payments going out to the bottom 20%. And if you cut taxes, the people who pay a lot of taxes are going to pay less taxes. And most of those are going to go to the people who pay the most taxes and who have the highest incomes. Anytime you do this, even if it's a straight percentage cut all the way across the board, say 1% cut in taxes, 1% cut in welfare all the way across the board, the chart's going to look like this every time. That's just what the people who pay the most money are going to save more in taxes. The people who get the most money are going to lose the most in their transfer payments. It will always look that way. And so that is an addition to this conversation, a dumb by Elon Musk, honestly. Mm-hmm. Now, as we get closer to the bill, Marjorie Taylor Greene posted 6 days ago, the American people didn't vote for another big bloated omnibus bill. This is after the Senate did their thing. They voted for President Trump's agenda, which includes ending sex change surgeries on kids, cutting Green New Deal scams, and stopping Medicaid for illegals. I'm fighting to make sure they get what they voted for, no compromises. Then today she posts about how she absolutely is voting for this bill because it's amazing. She says, I've been successful in business for almost 3 decades. Every successful business person knows you have to spend money to make money. You just said that earlier, Charlie.
Yeah.
The big, beautiful bill is the right spending to reverse the Democrats' America Last curse on the American people with the best America First tax, energy, and border security policies we will see in our lifetimes. The way to tackle our spending problems are through budget and appropriations and the incredible work being done by Doge.
Well, we'll do that later, though.
They're going to do it later.
Yeah.
At a time when they don't have to get over a 50 vote threshold, they have to get over a 60 vote threshold, meaning there's no way they're going to make any cuts in the appropriations, meaning they're going to do a continuing resolution, and we're going to actually just continue Joe Biden's budget probably all the way through Trump's budget, unless they want to increase spending, in which case they'll be able to get Democrats on board to pass that. If they want to do any cuts, that it's like not going to happen, only through Doge.
And when you say 60 vote threshold, you're talking about in the Senate.
In the Senate, yeah.
But in the House, I think it works the same.
House is majority, yeah.
Isn't there a 60% threshold, though, or something like that?
No, House
like
is simple majority, pretty sure.
Super majority?
That's just Senate, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah. The way to tackle our spending problems are through budget and appropriations and the incredible work being done by Doge, combined with President Trump's historic trade deals, trillions invested in America, tariff revenue, and deregulations.
These are all
America's
all the money
economy is
in.
going to skyrocket. Republicans have work to do, and I'm honored to be a part of it. Now,
Nate, if you had a business,
yeah.
Okay, and you knew your revenue forecast, and, in 10 years was going to be trillions of dollars, would you go to the bank and borrow some money?
Sure.
You got trillions of dollars coming in.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing here.
I know.
That's all this is.
Just historically, like we've made this point before, like businesses will go and borrow money, and Apple could borrow $1 million from the bank and come back with $1 billion like a year later from that money, but the government, when it borrows $1 million, it comes back and it owes $20 billion after that. Like that's just the way that they invest and spend money. You have to remember, Trump is not always going to be the president. Okay. That's going to change. Republicans are not always going to be in power in Congress. Things are going to change. So when you make these big long-term bets, you have to remember that a 10-year projection doesn't mean anything. You got to do like a 2 or 3 year projection at the most, maybe 2 years.
Well,
while
then
you got Congress.
if you just look at the historical investments of government, they typically do not even come close to their projections.
Well, no, it hasn't paid off. The debt keeps going up.
Yeah, exactly. If all of these investments that the government made, then this is the problem with modern monetary theory and all of that, is you're relying on a body of people whose incentive is for themselves and not for the actual people they serve. The problem is that those investments don't end up the way they do in a private market. Okay, like there's something to be said when you do this as a private company in a free market where you're competing. But when the government doesn't have to, and they can just print money, and if something goes awry, they don't have to fix it.
Yeah.
No one gets fired. If you go, $50 billion over budget and 3 years over time, no, everything's fine. You just, Susie was on vacation and we just couldn't get that file created. Project manager, and project manager never gets fired. Everybody just keeps going on about their business, and the problem is they need more money.
Yeah.
We didn't foresee all these things would happen. The difference is that if private companies did that, they would just go out of business.
Unless they're too big to fail. But other than that, yes.
Unless the government bails them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but the government can just always print more money. They can steal more money from you. All right, we can move on to number 6. I'm skipping like half the information for each one of these right now. That's how today is going, just so you guys know. Now we're going to do a little bit of Thomas Massey stuff, so that'll be fun. I want to start off with Laura Loomer, her post this morning. So just so you know, they had a vote to bring the big, beautiful bill to the floor, like for debate and all that. And I guess she thought that meant Massey had flipped and decided to vote for the big, beautiful bill, which is fine for the layperson or people not super plugged in to think. But if you're Laura Loomer and your whole job is just analyzing politics and talking about Congress and things that Trump wants, I would hope that you'd know the difference between voting to bring something to the floor and actually voting for the bill.
Dude, she's
itself.
just a shill for MAGA.
I know, a big
That's
plastic shill for MAGA.
Yeah.
Massey caved and flipped his vote because he knows who's really in charge, Donald Trump. Massey is such a pathetic grandstander. I can't wait till he's removed from office. He does everything for show. Everything's political theater for him at the expense of our country. Voting, like wanting the government to get smaller is political theater at the expense of our country.
Mm-hmm.
So, not wanting more expense is at the expense of our country.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's a good thing. So she kicks that off this morning for us in not understanding that he had not actually flipped that vote. Now, Cernovich, someone that we go back and forth with a little bit every now and then, he's back to being annoying again when it comes to Massey. But he posted out this article I thought was really interesting. This is like a big talking point. And as I mentioned earlier, I can handle saying that you disagree with Massey's strategy. You think that he needs to play ball a little bit more. You think that he needs to be realistic. You think that he needs to be a team player or whatever. He needs to be rational or realistic or whatever and not be so principled and idealistic and libertarian minded. I can totally entertain all those arguments, and those are fine arguments to make when you're talking about an actual politician who has to actually do things in Washington. Sure, those are fine conversations to have. What I don't like is when you lie about stuff. That's the part that really bothers me, or when you lie by omission when you're talking about someone. That's where it starts to just look...
Yeah, if we're going to have the conversation, let's have conversation in reality.
Yeah.
Grounded in truth.
Is his
Let's
strategy
make sure we're
correct?
Talking about the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So when you continually post
Don't
that stuff...
purposely leave out details to make a point.
There's a lot of details that are left out here. Like he posts out Kentucky, Representative Thomas Massey provided crucial committee vote on debt deal under Joe Biden. So now you're actually trying to say...
And here's the other point to that when you leave out specific details. The why matters.
Mm-hmm.
It
does.
matters so much. It is a very important detail. Okay, I'm dealing with this in my own personal life. Okay, like, this. I think this is public information, so I don't think it matters. I'm being personally accused of recording my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, now my ex, but
yeah,
that's the whole thing.
Well, technically,
and the truth is, I don't care to talk about the truth. The truth is, yeah, I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I've admitted that multiple times, and I have no reason to be upset about that or anything like that. Like, that's the truth. That's what it is. No one wants to talk about the why.
Yeah.
Well, it's because she was doing drugs,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to protect myself and my kid.
Yeah.
So if you leave out the why, it's like, oh, that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's really bad. What a terrible person.
Mm-hmm.
But if you talk about the why, and I made this comment, I don't know if you saw it or not, to Cernovich.
I did see it. Yeah.
When we talked about, whether or not he did this thing. And so this is why it's really important when you talk about, like, you think about self-defense, or you think about when somebody makes a decision to do something, the why is always important. The full context matters.
What they do by omitting the actual reason, what people like Cernovich do and a bunch of the other MAGA influencers do by omitting the actual reason, is they create this implied why. And people are supposed to come away with the idea that Massey is secretly like a Democrat and liked Joe Biden and was like a supporter of Joe Biden and wanted him to succeed, whereas he has TDS, he hates Trump and he wants Trump to fail. And that is like, simplistically, that's what this all boils down to. That Thomas Massey is like actually a Democrat and he's anti-Trump and he has TDS. And that's what you're supposed to believe. So when he says he provided a crucial committee vote on debt deal under Joe Biden, there's an immediate omission right there, which is the fact that the last 2 years of Joe Biden's presidency, we had a Republican Congress. Okay? This was a Kevin McCarthy bill that Thomas Massey voted to take out of committee. This is a House Republican bill.
Right.
That he voted to take out of committee. Was Joe Biden the president? Yes, he was. Joe Biden was going to have to sign that. but Republicans were trying to get something out of committee, get something on the floor, and get people to vote for something and get Joe Biden to sign it. And so when you just say under Joe Biden, you're like, oh, yeah, they were all just working for Joe Biden. And when it was Democrats in charge, Massey was playing ball the whole time. This is Republican Congress at this time. And it was Republicans working on this bill. All right. That's the very first thing. The other thing that I hope everyone knows is that this is called the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which Massey should have known that it's going to do the opposite of what it's called. Okay. But the obvious thing in this bill, the way that they got Massey to vote for it, was that if they did not do 12 separate spending bills, then they were going to do an automatic 1% cut across the board to all the non-discretionary or all discretionary non-defense spending, I think is the category. 1% across the board. That would have been like the biggest thing we've seen since I've ever looked at politics, just cutting actual 1% spending cuts across the board.
That would be amazing.
That would have been massive. And so, yeah, when Massey was asked to vote for this, even though it did increase the debt ceiling, he was like, well, they're not going to pass 12 separate bills. And so what's called the Massey provision in the bill, because he got it added in there, is going to trigger, and they're going to have to cut 1% across the board. These dumbasses, of course that's what's going to happen. What ended up happening was they didn't do the 12 separate spending bills. They ousted Kevin McCarthy. They brought in Mike Johnson, and Mike Johnson basically lawyered their way around ignoring that part of the bill, and they just never did it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I listened to a video of Massey talking about it, and he was like, basically, they just ignored it. It's still on the books. It's in the law that we signed, and they're just never going to bring it up again. That's it. That's all they're going to do. And so when you talk about he voted for this bill under Joe Biden,
the why is important.
The why is because in the law, he knew if they followed the law, they were going to get a 1% spending cut across the board, which is something that never happens. He just, I think, thought that they were going to hold to it. And I guess that's where...
And it was Mike Johnson who worked his way around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because they got rid of
McCarthy.
They ousted McCarthy because he didn't do the 12 separate bills that he said he was going to do. Like, that was one of the main reasons, because he didn't do the 12 separate bills. And then they just ignored the consequences. I guess maybe in the law it says we'll do 1% spending cuts or we'll oust the speaker and we'll call it good. You know, I guess that's the other thing. So I posted on there, just to be clear, you're 100% aware of why Massey voted for that. You know it made sense, and you're leaving that out intentionally. And Cernovich responded and said, did he vote it out of committee? Yes or no? That's not the point.
And to me, that was analogous to like, did you shoot the guy?
Yeah.
Yes or no? It's like, well, yes, I shot the guy.
Yeah.
Because he was attacking me.
Self-defense. Like
self-defense.
Actually, the guy had a gun on me.
Right. The reason, the reason matters. That's what was my point was.
Yeah.
The reason matters. The why matters. You know? You could say that about all kinds of things. You know, well, did you do it? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
And I just imagine a court setting. Like, well, yeah, I did it. Well, that looks bad. Ooh, bad.
As usual.
Well, why? Oh, you had a reason to do it. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay.
As usual, what we care the most about is not the fact that not everyone agrees with us on every single one of these policies or strategies. It's all fine for people to have disagreements on this. That's going to happen. People are different. Can we just not be dishonest about it the whole time? Do we have to make dishonest arguments constantly? Just say that you think it's dumb that Massey is so idealistic and he won't work with Republicans, he won't take a compromise, and that we should get rid of him because we need someone who's like Massey but is a little bit more willing to compromise. I think that'd be better. Just make that. Don't make dishonest arguments about it. That really gets our biscuits a burning. Let's go to Raphael Warnock. We just got a couple more here.
I just got the blue screen of death on my computer.
What?
Just randomly.
Time for a new one.
It is.
Yeah, you got to get a new computer ASAP. We'll just do, so there was the one from Warnock that we played earlier in the week where he talked about this bill being socialism for the rich because it took money from the poor and it gave it to the rich. I don't even have to play it for you to remember how dumb that is,
that's
or
dumb.
for your brain to automatically be like, okay, that's dumb because you're just giving less of other people's money to the poor people and you're just actually letting people keep more of their own money. That's not socialism at all. So we can get rid of that one, and now we'll play the the Bible and appeal to Jesus. Let's appeal to Jesus. That's why the big beautiful bill is so bad, because Jesus would actually be against this. He doesn't say that specifically, but the Bible would.
But if I'm honest, there are days when I have to ask people of my faith tradition as a Christian, are we reading the same book?
I think not.
The book I know says, I was hungry and you fed me.
The government.
I was sick, I was in prison, and you visited me. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. Inasmuch as you've done it to the least of these, you've done it also unto me. The book that I love says, learn to do good, seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, plead for the widow. Speak out for those who cannot speak, for the rights of the destitute. Speak out, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. My book says,
and you know the thing. It's so, do you think they actually do understand the difference and they just keep saying this over and over again because they're trying to appeal to Christians in order to get votes? Or do you think they actually don't understand the difference in the Bible saying that you should do things to help people if you can, that you should do things for the poor and for the needy, versus it saying that you should be forced to give your money under penalty of death to the government, and then the government should waste about 3/4 of it and then give a little bit of it to the needy as long as it's close to the election season.
Then you can pat yourself on the back.
And then you'll go to heaven.
Yeah.
Like, do you think they understand the difference or they don't understand the difference in that?
Both.
You think it's maybe both?
Yeah. I think some of them think it's their job to use their position of power to advocate for some of these things. And I think some use it as a tool to try to convince Christians that their way of Christianity is the right way. The Bible's full of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't tell you to convince the government to tax the rich. He says, if you're rich, sell all of your possessions. Your possessions. You sell your possessions.
Yeah.
And give to the needy.
Mm-hmm.
And follow him. He doesn't tell you to advocate
for bigger government.
Advocate the government of Rome.
Yeah.
To tax the rich so that we could feed the poor. That's not what he says at all. None of it says that. It's on you as the person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have the moral obligation and personal responsibility. There's a dumb I have, I didn't send to you, but someone, it's actually someone I know, and it's someone that is an extremely sad situation, and I donated to their campaign when they ran one, but a friend of mine had a child a couple of years ago, and the child didn't make it. Spent 325 days in the hospital, had like 3 open heart surgeries, so many tests or whatever. The bill would have been millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're in the literally the most expensive hospital room there is, which is NICU.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have 3 open heart surgeries on a little baby and all kinds of other things that had happened, including ECMO, which is like basically the machine lives for you.
Maybe about
filters your blood and
most
everything.
Expensive thing you can do in a hospital, maybe.
Yeah, and so the bill would have been millions of dollars. However, at the time, the parents qualified for Medicaid, I think, and so TennCare took care of most of that, and they still had thousands of dollars they had to pay, but it wasn't the millions that it would have been. And their argument was, this big, beautiful bill is disastrous because hundreds of thousands of Tennesseans are now going to lose their TennCare. And I get the appeal to emotion, and this is something happened to someone close to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. And I personally donated to the thing when it was happening to help them out. But to me, that's the key difference, is that it's the community's job to pool together to help those in need for certain situations. Why is it the government's job to threaten people by force to give money that they may not even have to give because grocery prices are high to feed their own family. And so that your child, which unfortunately didn't make it, was able to pay the medical expenses. We're not talking about the real problems here. The problem, first of all, the problems are how expensive healthcare is.
Yeah.
And we could drastically reduce those costs. Or two, we could be grateful that such a system exists that you could have $1 million bill at the end of the day, but you got to have 325 days with your child.
Yeah.
Whereas 50 years ago, that just would have died. It would have nothing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have had a bill.
Just a miracle that those things exist in the first place.
You wouldn't have had a bill at all. And I'm not trying to show, I don't even know if my friend listens to the show. If they do, I'm not trying to throw shade. I'm not mentioning any names. No one knows who it is.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to say is that this isn't a reason that we should force people to, or we should tax people to pool together a fund so that we have more Medicaid. It's not anyone else's responsibility to pay for a child. And I say that as someone, like if I had a child in a similar situation, I would have the same principles. Like it would be a situation like, my mom, for instance, who doesn't make a whole lot of money, no one should be responsible for her surgeries or anything else. No one else is
not under threat of imprisonment.
Not under threat of imprisonment.
Yeah.
Yes. No one else should be responsible.
Yeah.
We've somehow taken this collectivist idea because we have these, certain programs. And so it amounts to this like collectivism idea of like, well, if something goes really wrong in my life, everyone else should be forced to shelter the burden. Now, personally, I think, and morally, especially if you're a Christian, you should pool together for your community and help those in need voluntarily.
Yeah.
Because then it actually means something.
Then it's actual morality at that time when it's done voluntarily. When you force people to do it under threat of imprisonment, you're not creating the moral society that's helping people.
It means nothing.
They do it because they had to do it, or they would go to prison for not doing it. And there's no morals behind that. You're just threatening them and forcing them to do it. Like there's a moral person who decides to take money out of their own wallet, or if you go up to a gun and put it at them and say, hey, I need that money in your wallet, there was no moral exchange of money trying to help someone at that point. And that's what the government does. And it's probably why we have such a crazy society these days. There's no need for the actual morals because the government becomes they're the morals. They do all the moral things in our society for us. As long as we can just get the tax rates right, they're going to do everything. They'll shoulder the moral burdens for the community.
Anyway, sorry, I went on a long tangent there.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You're good. I like it.
Should be relative.
I like it. Okay, that was number 7, called Something. And number 8, this should take us less than 1 minute and 30 seconds. This is posted in the group. I'd seen this going around also. And it's a Libertarian Party discussion here. This is like a member board or whatever. Please join and help found the Libertarian Party. Yeah, help found the Libertarian Party Jewish Caucus at lpjewish.com. The LP Jewish Caucus is intended to serve 2 functions. First, to ensure that the Libertarian Party and the Liberty Movement more generally remains a space wherein Jewish libertarians can continue to pursue the cause of liberty with dignity and pride. Second, to coordinate observance and community among party members and at party events. Okay, there's something like super...
Is this funded by AIPAC?
Okay. It's just, I don't have anything against Jews. This just happens to be a Jewish caucus. Okay, that's what we're talking about right now. There's something super weird about a party that is about individualism and not collectivism, not putting people into groups, especially groups organized by like immutable characteristics, religion, things like that, not organizing them into groups. That is super weird to come from the Libertarian Party. And I get that there are caucuses. Most of them are like ideological caucuses inside the party. And so you can group together based on the ideas of liberty that you share. But grouping together by those kind of characteristics seems to be pretty anti-libertarian to me. Now, you should be allowed to do it. Sure, they should be allowed to do it. I feel like this is more of like why there's so many issues inside the Libertarian Party. It's just all over the place, Are we doing collectivism? We're not doing collectivism? What are we doing here? Are we going to, what's going on?
I don't really have a problem with this.
Yeah.
Except are they going to be fighting for like liberty for everyone, or is it like just the Jews, or what is it?
I think it'd be important if LP started getting that AIPAC money.
Are they for like Israel bombing Gaza?
I doubt that. I'm not saying that. It just hits me the weird way, like the Libertarian Party posting about Pride Month, things like that. Like you're literally talking about putting people into groups based on those kind of characteristics and celebrating this pride. I'm like, I thought we were all individuals here, and that's what we were pushing towards. LPNH might as well mention, they said, should we start a Libertarian Party caucus for white men? We would prefer the Libertarian Party not do affinity groups, but since there are now affinity groups for women, Jews, blacks, etc., there should probably be one for white men too. Well, that's the whole Libertarian Party, Charlie. Okay. That's the
Mises Caucus.
Yeah, it's called the Mises Caucus. What are you talking about? Come on. All right, that one came from the Fed Haters Club. If you want to throw in your own submissions, by the way, join gmail.com. Do that. Last one, real quick. Stephen Miller says the libertarian delusion is that there is a large political constituency for their ideology. It does not exist. Libertarians have never performed nationally above a number rounding to zero. And when libertarians run for president within the GOP, they are the first ones out.
That's not true. I mean, 3% rounds to 5.
Yeah. 3% does not automatically round to zero.
Come on, Stephen.
Ron Paul was not the first one out of the election process in 08 or 12.
Well, he's a Republican.
So, he said when they run for president within the GOP, they're the first ones out.
Oh.
And so that's okay. So there's factually not accurate statements in there. But then when he says the delusion is that there's a large political constituency for their ideology, it does not exist. I'm not under that delusion. I might have been a little bit deluded during the election that the American people were moving in the right direction, that we were talking about cutting $2 trillion worth of spending and cutting the military budget and stuff like that. And it is true. We did talk about that for a little bit. That was fun. Those were fun times, back in that time. But I'm no longer under that delusion that we were in any way moving towards that. At all. Just
I don't
so you
think
guys
it is
know.
a delusion. I think there is political constituency for libertarian ideology.
Well, there's some. I don't know if it's very large.
What do you think makes up?
You still think everyone's a libertarian?
I don't think everyone's a libertarian.
I think they all can be.
I think when you talk to most people and they start to understand. See, I think that's the biggest thing. There is a great ignorance that befalls society.
Yeah.
And when you talk to people and they start to actually understand how government works, how spending works, and those types of things, they're like, I don't like that. I like this. I'd like to keep more of my own money. I'd like to do these things. They start sounding like a libertarian. They start sounding like they're pro-liberty. That's what I mean by that.
It is extremely possible that if people hear the right message, I think I said last night on that Mises podcast, the right message at the right time, that the switch can flip. It is very possible. It happened for both of us. We assumed that we were right about everything, and then we heard the right thing at the right time that triggered that little inception, that little idea in our heads that eventually planted the seed, and then it grew into a plant that eventually became libertarian ideology. We found out that we should question our government. We found out that they didn't always have our best interests in mind, and that maybe someone was lying to us.
We found out you should research how monetary policy works.
That was a big one.
How economics works. Whether or not what your politicians are saying are true or not. How statistics work. How you can manipulate data and charts to show one message or the other. And that's why I say ignorance, because I think if most people understood some basic concepts of, let's just say, economics, I think that their votes would be a lot different, and they wouldn't be so easily fooled by the lies and the twists and turns that those in political theater would like to do. See, they wouldn't be so easily fooled. They would know that like someone like Thomas Massey is sticking to principles, and the rest of them are the ones that are being foolish rather than listening to the lies.
Yeah.
I think if they had some basic understandings, that's what would happen.
See, I think it's that they need those basic understandings, and people also have to be open to potentially being wrong, or they have to be open to learning new things, to finding out new things. They have to have that kind of openness, because if you're so set in your ways, or you just will never, if you're the kind of person that will never ever admit that you're wrong, and you would never do that, just never in a million years, it's going to be very difficult for those people to become libertarians. And see, I like figuring out that I was wrong about something. I actually enjoy, I would love to find out. I would love to be convinced that I'm wrong about all the stuff we've said about Thomas Massey being the right way for Republicans to go in Congress, or, Elon Musk being a positive benefit for you. I'd love to find those things out. I like finding out I'm wrong about stuff. I want to make sure that I've got the right principles and the right ideology. I love it.
Just
most people are not.
often.
Yeah. Well, it has happened a lot. And I'm coming here and I'll say I was wrong. And sometimes I quite enjoy coming on and say I'm wrong, because we can make a nice, funny joke out of it, I think. I don't remember the last time that happened. I think this is the best response to Stephen Miller. That's why I brought it up in here. Axiomatic enemy of the state said, "We wouldn't have $30 trillion in debt, $220 trillion in unfunded liabilities, endless wars, COVID lockdowns, or tens of thousands of laws that control every aspect of your life through threats of violence if there was a large contingency of libertarians in this country. None of you desire individual freedom or liberty. You just want a mommy government to hold your hands through life. You are all just progressive light. Y'all really shouldn't be boastful of what you've done." And that is the part that really rings true to me. Like, of course there's not a large political constituency. You know why? Because if there was, they would have made way more cuts in this big, beautiful bill. You know why they didn't do it? Because they don't want to lose their jobs in a couple of years.
And they don't have to.
And if they thought that if they didn't make the big cuts, that would cause them to lose their jobs, then they would have made the big cuts. But they did a political calculation. They said, me getting reelected in 2 or 4 years is more important than the future of America. And so I'm going to do what will help get me elected in 2 or 4 years. Why is that? Because there's not a large libertarian political constituency that these people are worried about knocking them out in the next election. They're worried about the people who are going to be upset about Medicaid getting cut, about entitlements.
Until the America Party starts.
And then
Friday, July 4th.
Tomorrow's going to be America Party.
17.
That actually would be pretty cool.
2025.
That would be pretty sweet if they can pass the bill today, which, by the way, I kind of hope they do so we can stop talking about it. If it passes today and then Musk starts the America Party on frickin' July 4th.
July 4th.
Then
you'll have a lot more people.
That's God right
You'll
there.
have a lot more people caring about spending.
All right, let's get the votes in. We got to get out of here. Holy crap.
My computer died. So.
Your computer died.
I can't see anything. So
I'm
get
going to
your
pee my
votes in.
pants. All kinds of stuff going on.
Get your votes in. Nate's going to have to look at that. Run back through the dumbs.
No, I've got, let's see. We did put them on. Number 1 was Alligator, Alcatraz. Mainly the Holocaust reference for that. Number 2, shrinking middle class. Number 3, all the dumb stuff that Momdani has been out there saying. My God, I hope he just stays in New York. Number 4, he'll probably end up running the Democrat Party sometime or something like that, because he can't be. Well, he's not natural born.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Thank God we have that.
Well, he can be a representative or a senator.
That's true. That's probably what's going to end up happening. Number 4 is Trump and Musk. Mainly Trump's comments about Musk only being upset about the EV credits or the EV mandate going away. Number 5, BBB, MTG. That thing, MTG actually made it on there, kind of. Number 6, the Thomas Massey stuff. Please, God, don't let that win again. We're just going to have a whole Dumb Bleep of the month of just which Thomas Massey interaction was the dumbest with these people, and we'll just figure out that'll be the dumb. Number 7, the set Warnock and the Bible, and Jesus wants you to give your money to the federal government so they can help some people sometimes. Kind of, only they're really setting them back and not helping society at all. Number 8, LP Jew. Number 9, Stephen Miller, Libertarian.
LP Jew.
I was trying to save time.
You're going fast.
Okay? Trying to save time. So it looks like right now, Alligator Alcatraz is winning, and I believe it's probably the post from Project Liberal in that is winning currently. Charlie, tell them what to do.
All right. If you enjoyed this episode, share it around. Leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Right now it's tied.
We got to get the tie going.
If you want to vote, go to joingml.com, be part of the Fed Haters Club, so you can vote. And then maybe we wouldn't have so many ties.
Yeah.
We need more votes.
We need more
in here.
We got to get more votes.
So join the show, watch live, get your vote in. It's fun. It's fun for the whole family.
Mm-hmm.
So sign your family up. That's what I say.
I went ahead and did a tiebreaker. And
okay, JD.
What would you pick? What would you pick out of the Alligator Alcatraz or the Momdani stuff?
Momdani.
You pick Momdani.
What'd
All
you
right,
pick?
so I picked Alligator Alcatraz just to do something different. So now we're back to being tied. Someone's got to pull some votes from the other options. Break this tie. You can go to joingml.com, the hangout, and the live group. GodHatesFeds.com if you want to get a God Hates Feds t-shirt. I mentioned that on that Mises podcast last night, and then I realized that I probably shouldn't have.
Why?
It's a little bit offensive to some people. A little bit offensive.
Good.
So when you're representing,
I like being offensive.
You got to be careful about that. And so
you have to be offensive.
Yeah.
You have to risk being offensive.
In order to make funny shirts, you have to risk being offensive.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what we did.
Don't try to be a people pleaser here, Nate. Come on.
Momdani wins. Momdani wins.
Good.
Thank you for all the votes, everyone. Good.
Do all those things.
That means we can talk about socialism in our Dumb Bleep of the month when we do that.
Do all those things I said. Visit the links in the show notes to support the sponsors that support this show. If you do all of that, we'll be back again on Monday. Hope you have a good day and a good 4th of July and a good morning liberty.